When Karen knocked on my door and slapped me with a $5,000 fine for illegal hunting, I just smiled. What she didn't know was that little piece of paper was about to set off a chain reaction that would leave the entire HOA in chaos. They thought they controlled every inch of Green Valley Estates, but there's one thing they can't control: property law. And once I started digging into those so-called community trails they love hiking every morning, I uncovered a secret that flipped the entire game. If you've ever dreamed of teaching an HOA a lesson in private property rights, this story is for you. By the way, where are you watching from? Drop a comment. I'd love to see how strong our community really is. I never set out to become the neighborhood's villain. 2 years ago, I moved to Green Valley Estates for peace and quiet. After 8 years in the military and 5 more crammed into Seattle tech offices, I was craving space, real space. I'm Mason Holloway, 38 years old, and I work remotely as a software engineer for a cybersecurity firm. The job pays well, gives me flexibility, and most importantly, it let me leave the city behind. Green Valley looked perfect: modern homes on big lots, tucked up against forested land in western Washington. HOA dues were steep, $4.50 a quarter, but the agent swore it was worth it for the beautiful landscaping and peaceful trails. What she didn't mention was the HOA president, Evelyn Richardson. A 38-year-old control freak with a law degree, a perfect bob haircut, and a 5-year streak of winning HOA elections, unopposed. Probably because no one dared run against her. She introduced herself with a welcome basket, stuffed with bylaws and barely any cookies. "We're so delighted to have new blood in Green Valley," she told me, her fake smile never touching her eyes. That should have been my first warning. At first, I stayed out of it. Paid my dues, mowed my lawn, skipped the HOA meetings. My neighbor Sarah, a kind elementary school teacher, gave me the real scoop. "Don't let Evelyn get to you," she said. "She means well, sort of, but she always thinks her way is the only way." Things might have stayed peaceful if it weren't for my weekend hobby. I grew up in rural Montana, and my grandfather taught me to hunt. It's not just sport, it's heritage. It's silence, patience, respect for the land. And that's how I found the 80 acres of pristine forest next to our community. I did a little digging and found it belonged to Frank Williams, an 83-year-old man now living in Florida. I emailed him, asking permission to hunt. He replied the next day, "Son, I haven't set foot on that land in a decade. Hunt all you want, just send a photo if you get a nice buck." What I didn't realize is that for years, Evelyn and her HOA friends had been using Frank's land like it was their own private park, cutting trails, adding benches, even putting up bird feeders. No permission, no lease, nothing. And that little detail? It was about to blow everything wide open. When I called Frank Williams to update him, he was shocked. "They've been doing what?" he said. "I've never given anyone permission to build trails or put up benches. I just pay the taxes. Honestly, with my medical bills piling up, I've been thinking of selling the land anyway." That's when the idea hit me. "Frank," I said, trying to sound casual, "if you're serious about selling, I might be interested." As we talked through the details, I realized I had just found the perfect way to turn the tables on Evelyn and her HOA. That night, I dove into public property records. What I found made me gasp. The HOA wasn't just using the land. They were planning to turn it into something called the Evelyn Richardson Nature Park. They had submitted architectural renderings, applied for grants, and even held fundraisers, all without permission from the actual owner. There it was in black and white, a full blueprint for a walking trail, picnic areas, and a stone entrance sign labeled "A Green Valley Legacy." The next morning, I called Amanda Lewis, a real estate attorney recommended by a colleague. She reviewed the documents and raised her eyebrows. "This is bold," she said. "They're trying to claim adverse possession, but they haven't paid the taxes or had open, hostile ownership for the required 10 years. And planning a park without ownership? That's reckless. If you buy the land, you'll have solid ground to act." So I made my move. While Evelyn and her followers launched a whisper campaign, garbage cans mysteriously left uncollected, notes warning me I wasn't welcome, I was quietly working with Frank and Amanda to buy the land. Frank initially asked $800,000. After some back and forth, we settled on $750,000. It was nearly everything I had, my savings, a chunk of my grandparents' inheritance, but it wasn't just land. It was peace of mind. And a checkmate. As the paperwork moved forward, the HOA harassment ramped up. More violation letters. One for my garbage bins. Another because I parked my truck in my own driveway too long. A third reminding me about the hunting fine, now with late fees. I ignored them. Amanda said to document everything, but not to engage. Not yet. Meanwhile, Sarah kept feeding me intel. Evelyn's hosting secret meetings, she whispered one evening. There's a big fundraiser next month, $1,000 minimum donation. She's cozying up to Daniel Thompson on the city council. Even Evelyn's husband, Trevor, an architect, was seen surveying Frank's land. His firm, Green Vision Consulting, was listed on the development plans. They weren't just stealing land. They were building a legacy on it. And Evelyn wanted her name etched in stone. Then came the final warning. Evelyn and Marcus appeared at my door again, this time with a threat to sue if I didn't pay the now $5,700 in fines. Evelyn, in her perfect blue blazer, tried her usual sweet and steely routine. We don't want legal action, Mason, she said. But we will do what's necessary to protect our community standards. I nodded. You'll have my response in 48 hours. She looked surprised. I'm glad you're finally seeing reason. If only she knew. The next day, I signed the papers and closed the deal. The 80 acres were now mine. Not Evelyn's. Not the HOA's. The deed was in my hand, and Evelyn had no idea what was coming. Right on cue, at 9 a.m. sharp, my doorbell rang. Evelyn stood there, legal packet in hand, Marcus behind her trying to look stern. Good morning, Mason, she said. Have you reconsidered your position? I smiled. Actually, yes. Come in, I have something to show you. We sat down in my living room. She launched into her prepared legal monologue. I let her finish. Then I slid a folder across the table. Inside, the deed. My name. The survey map. Every inch of that land now under my ownership. I now own the property where the hunting took place. And where you've been building trails and planning a park without consent. That's over. Evelyn's face went pale. She flipped through the papers like they might vanish if she blinked. Marcus leaned over, stunned. This can't be right, she stammered. We've used those trails for over a decade. That gives us rights. It's adverse possession. You never paid the taxes. Never had permission. Never contacted the owner, I said calmly. And I have proof you knew exactly what you were doing. Fundraising on someone else's land? That's fraud. Marcus started sweating. Maybe we should consult with... Feel free, I cut in. But in the meantime, this cease and desist letter requires all unauthorized HOA activity on my land to stop. Immediately. I slid another document across the table. Any benches, bird feeders, trails, they're illegal structures. You have 7 days to remove them. And I suggest you cancel those grant applications and fundraisers before you make this even worse. Evelyn stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she snapped. I built this community. One piece of paper won't stop me. I stayed seated. You built a fantasy. I bought reality. And the law is on my side. They stormed out. I watched them hustle across the street, to Jessica Parker's house, no doubt to start spinning their version of events. By afternoon, Sarah texted me. Emergency HOA meeting. Tonight. Evelyn's in full meltdown. I ordered no trespassing signs. Hired a contractor. By tomorrow, the entire property would be fenced off. And just as I was preparing to walk into that emergency meeting, my doorbell rang again. It was Emily Chen, reporter for the Valley Chronicle. Emily Chen stood at my door, notepad in hand, her tone direct and professional. We've received tips about a dispute between you and the Green Valley HOA. Would you care to comment? After months of passive-aggressive notes and underhanded behavior, her straightforwardness was refreshing. I invited her in and shared the situation, sticking to the facts, careful not to say anything defamatory. Her eyes widened as I laid out the chain of events. So, you legally purchased the land, and the HOA had been using it without permission? And they planned to name a park after their president without ever consulting the owner. She shook her head. This'll make quite a story. Just before I left for that night's emergency HOA meeting, an elderly man approached my porch cautiously. I need to speak with you privately, he said, glancing over his shoulder. His name was Robert Jackson, 65, a retired accountant who had lived in Green Valley for over 2 decades. Inside, Robert dropped a bombshell. He had once served on the HOA board. Back when the board first discovered that the land used for trails was privately owned, Evelyn told them to stop looking for the rightful owner. She said it would only complicate things, Robert confessed. Told us adverse possession would handle it eventually. I quit the board over it. It wasn't ethical. And there was more. Robert suspected financial misconduct. The HOA had been collecting trail improvement assessments from homeowners for 3 years, tens of thousands of dollars, but the financial reports didn't fully account for the money. I asked at a meeting, he said, but they claimed the details were confidential. Said it was due to ongoing negotiations. Now it wasn't just an overreach of HOA power. This was potential fraud. Before leaving, Robert grabbed my arm. Be careful, he warned. Evelyn doesn't lose gracefully. And she and her husband have deep connections in this town. That night's HOA meeting was a full-blown circus. The community center was packed. Many of the residents I'd never even spoken to showed up. Evelyn took the floor with poise, but her eyes were tight with fury. We've called this emergency meeting, she began, to address a serious issue. Mr. Holloway has purchased land that has served as our community nature trails for over a decade. He is now threatening to destroy years of community improvement. Murmurs rippled through the room as Evelyn painted me as a selfish outsider, someone who didn't value community spirit. Then her husband Trevor unveiled glossy renderings of the proposed Evelyn Richardson Nature Park, complete with trails, a playground, even an amphitheater. All of this, he declared solemnly, is now at risk because one man refuses to support the vision we built together. When it was finally my turn to speak, the room felt hostile. I appreciate everyone's passion, I began calmly, but you deserve to know the truth. 1. The land in question was never owned by the HOA. 2. The HOA never contacted the actual owner before using or planning to develop the property. And 3. Fundraising was conducted under false pretenses, since the HOA never had legal rights to the land. The room erupted in chaos. Some shouted about their donations. Others accused me of destroying a community treasure. Through the noise, I noticed Nancy Roberts, the HOA secretary, watching me. Not with anger. With fear. She wouldn't meet my gaze. Richard Cooper, the treasurer, looked equally rattled. As I left, Sarah pulled me aside. That was intense, she whispered. But people are talking. Some of the older residents want to know where their money actually went. I think Nancy knows more than she's saying. The next few days were telling. My no trespassing signs were installed. By the second day, half had been ripped down or vandalized. But I had planned for this. I'd installed trail cams that captured crystal clear footage of Marcus Bennett and other HOA members trespassing, pulling up signs in the dead of night. Useful evidence. But I was still chasing the bigger story. Amanda Lewis helped me file public records requests on all HOA financial documents tied to the park project. While we waited, I reached out to Nancy Roberts under the pretense of discussing the vandalism. She was hesitant at first, terrified even, but finally agreed to meet at a coffee shop 2 towns over. I can't be seen with you, she whispered as she sat down. Evelyn has eyes everywhere. What Nancy told me confirmed everything. As HOA secretary, she had access to all the records. The so-called Nature Park Development Fund had taken in over $75,000 in resident donations. But large chunks were routed to a company, Green Vision Consulting. They send vague invoices. They're approved instantly by Evelyn. No board discussion. No competitive bids. I asked the question I already knew the answer to. Who owns Green Vision? she exhaled. Trevor Adams and Patricia Bennett. Trevor, Evelyn's husband. Patricia, Marcus Bennett's sister. It's all kept quiet, Nancy said. They claim it's exempt from normal procurement rules. I've been making backups. Here. She slid me a flash drive. I wanted to say something, she said. But Evelyn made it clear my job at the school district was on the line if I caused trouble. Her law firm represents the district. She's friends with the superintendent. With the flash drive in hand, I went straight to Detective Alex Morgan, a financial crimes investigator with the county sheriff's office. He reviewed the files and nodded. If they raised money for a project on land they never owned, and then funneled it to a company they control, that's fraud. Embezzlement. Misrepresentation. This isn't just an HOA squabble anymore. As the quiet investigation began, Evelyn escalated. A few protesters showed up on my lawn with "Save Our Trails" signs. Social media lit up with posts calling me a danger to the community. Sarah warned me the school principal had hinted that her contract might not be renewed because of her association with me. Emily Chen's article hit the Valley Chronicle soon after. It was fair, but it asked the right questions. Why was the HOA collecting money for a park on land it didn't own? And where exactly did that money go? The next day, I received a certified letter from the HOA's attorney. They were threatening to sue me for defamation, demanding $100,000 in damages, accusing me of slander, of harming the HOA's reputation. That evening my phone rang. It was Detective Morgan. "We've obtained preliminary bank records," he said. "Green Vision Consulting has received $68,000 from the HOA in 3 years. They only have one client, the HOA. And based on the services billed, they're charging about 3 times what's standard. We're moving forward." At the next HOA meeting, Evelyn was visibly on edge. "We will not be intimidated by these baseless accusations," she declared. "Mr. Holloway is trying to deflect from his own violations. We'll defend ourselves." But the crowd wasn't buying it. I saw skeptical glances. Whispers. Duh. And then Evelyn looked directly at me. "You've made a serious mistake, Mason. When this is over, I promise you won't just lose this battle. You'll regret ever moving to Green Valley. I will personally make sure of it." It was the final piece I needed, a public threat, witnessed by dozens. I walked out of that meeting with a clear purpose. It was time to stop defending. It was time to go on the offensive. The next morning, I called Emily Chen. "I have a story for you," I told her. "An exclusive. Bring your camera." When she arrived, I handed her the full file, the payment records, ownership documents for Green Vision, screenshots of donations, signed statements from Frank Williams and Robert Jackson, and the receipts. In 24 hours, Evelyn wouldn't be the one calling the shots. She'd be the one under investigation. I submitted everything. Every document. Every receipt. The proof that Green Vision Consulting was just a shell company run by Evelyn's husband. Evidence that the HOA board had deliberately avoided contacting the actual owner of the land they'd been developing. I even attached the audio from Evelyn's threat at the last meeting and included witness statements from neighbors who heard it firsthand. Emily, the reporter, blinked as she flipped through it all. "This is extensive," she said. "And Detective Morgan's already involved," I told her. "He's treating it as a financial crimes investigation, not just a neighborhood squabble." She promised her article would hit the papers the next day, but she'd run a preview online that same evening. Just in time for the emergency HOA meeting Evelyn had called, supposedly to address defamatory attacks against the board. While Emily wrote, Amanda and I went to work. We sent every Green Valley homeowner a letter. It included proof, trail cam footage of board members tearing down my signs, receipts showing the difference between what was donated for the park and what was actually paid to Green Vision. We also offered a solution. If the board stepped down and agreed to transparent oversight, I'd open a new, properly managed trail system on my land. Insured. Maintained. Legal. By late afternoon, word spread fast. Detective Morgan had been spotted interviewing other board members, including Richard Cooper and Nancy Roberts. Meanwhile, residents were getting panicked calls from Evelyn, urging them to attend the meeting and show solidarity. But her grip was slipping. John Peterson, a retired banker who donated $5,000 to the park fund, was livid and calling other residents. Cynthia Miller, once one of Evelyn's strongest allies, publicly called for a full audit. That evening's HOA meeting? Absolute chaos. The room was packed, people standing shoulder to shoulder, spilling out the door. Evelyn marched in with Trevor and Marcus, all three looking rattled. The moment she tried to speak, the crowd exploded. Is it true you funneled HOA money to your husband's company? Why didn't you tell us the land didn't even belong to us? She shouted back, denying everything. These are lies. Mason Holloway is manipulating you all. She insisted the HOA had properly hired Green Vision, that Trevor's role was irrelevant. But Richard Cooper stood up and turned on her. You told me everything was clean, he said. You lied to the board. Then came the moment no one expected. District Attorney William Hayes and Detective Morgan entered the room and stood silently at the back. Evelyn cracked. She pounded the podium, yelling, "Everything I did was for this community. So what if I bent a few rules? Do you want some outsider deciding who gets to enjoy nature?" The room fell silent. Then Nancy Roberts stood. "You threatened my job when I asked about the payments," she said, her voice trembling. "This wasn't about community, it was about you building a monument to yourself. That was it." The dam broke. Demands for Evelyn's resignation rang out. Even Marcus didn't defend her. Trevor just stood there, pale, watching it all unravel. DA Hayes stepped up. "Given the ongoing investigation," he said calmly, "I'd suggest the HOA consider appointing temporary leadership." Evelyn refused. "I will not step down. This is a witch hunt. Mason Holloway is leading a vendetta, and anyone repeating these lies will be sued." Then she stormed out, Trevor and Marcus hurrying after her. Afterward, dozens of residents came to me. Some apologized. Some asked questions. Most just wanted to help fix things. Sarah gave me a thumbs up. She'd been filming the whole thing. Hayes and Morgan pulled me aside. "This is no longer just an HOA matter," the DA said. "It looks like wire fraud, misuse of funds, maybe more." Then that night, I got a text from an unknown number. Storage Unit 23. Valley Self-Storage. They're moving documents. Tonight. I called Detective Morgan immediately. His team intercepted Trevor and Patricia Bennett trying to destroy records. That sealed it. A few days later, Evelyn made one last desperate move. She posted online and emailed everyone, announcing a community trail walk, basically a mass trespass on my land. Join your neighbors. Bring kids, cameras. Reclaim our trails. I saw it coming. First, I called Morgan. Then Amanda and I had my land formally designated a wildlife reserve, fenced, signed, and legally posted. I even added an entry gate and a kiosk explaining the new conservation status. Saturday morning, I stood there, camera ready. Amanda at my side. Right on cue, Evelyn showed up, brand new hiking gear, waving signs with about 30 followers behind her. She stormed to the gate. "This is outrageous," she shouted. "These fences are illegal, we're taking back what's ours." But before she could even touch the gate, 3 patrol cars rolled up. Deputies stepped out. "This land is private," Morgan said calmly. "Anyone crossing will be arrested." He turned to Evelyn. "Organizing this could be added to the charges." She turned beet red. "This is absurd. Tell them, Marcus." But Marcus stepped back. The crowd melted away, heading for their cars. Evelyn's followers evaporated. "You're giving up?" she shrieked. "After everything I've done?" And that line, "everything I've done," it hit different now. By week's end, with evidence from Nancy, Richard, and the storage unit, Evelyn, Trevor, and Patricia were charged with fraud, embezzlement, and misappropriation of funds. Over $68,000 had been stolen. The HOA board was disbanded. Sarah Johnson was elected interim president. Her first act? Full audit. New transparency rules. Even Richard Cooper resigned. "I should have asked more questions," he said. "And me? I kept my promise. I built a real trail. Permitted, protected, and named after the man who gave me permission to walk his land, the Frank Williams Memorial Trail. The plaque tells his story and reminds everyone, nature deserves respect. So does ownership. The final blow? Evelyn and her crew took plea deals. Probation. Suspended sentences. Over $100,000 repaid. And a 10-year ban from managing any nonprofit or HOA. They sold their home quietly and left Green Valley. No fanfare. Just disgrace. The next HOA meeting felt different. Real conversations. Real leadership. When we voted to officially access part of my land under proper rules, it passed unanimously. This, Sarah said, is what a community is supposed to be. I still hunt on my land. Now with my neighbor's support. And the $75,000 Evelyn paid back? My idea turned it into a scholarship fund for students studying ethics and leadership. Sometimes it takes losing something to realize what really matters. The HOA lost access, but found its honesty. And me? I gained something far better than revenge, a true community. As for Evelyn? Last I heard, she lives in an apartment, with no HOA. Fitting, isn't it? Still thinking about what just happened? Used to. Hit subscribe, and come unravel more madness with QA stories. Mr. Holloway, she said, notepad in hand, we've received some very interesting tips.